Hey there, my name's Bren Vanderswag, and I'm the president of GutterExperts.com and the founder of GutterCon. I love to chat with people in the gutter industry, suppliers, inventors, manufacturers, and gutter guys and gals just like you and me. I enjoy finding out about how they got into business, where they came from, and what their businesses are doing today in the gutter industry. Please meet my guest for today, Matthew Henningsen. Matt works with Divvy, a subsidiary of Bill.com, and is speaking with us from Salt Lake City, Utah. How you doing today, Matt?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, no problem. You and I haven't known each other very long. You contacted me. I think it was just was it the week before GutterCon and said, "Do you have any space?" And we squeezed you in. Actually, I was going to have a booth there myself, and I think I gave you my booth.
Oh, I
Because
appreciate that. I didn't know that.
well, I was going to have a booth. We were going to we do a few different things, but we were going to really be promoting our Gutter Academy. And I just
Yeah,
really I had so much going on before GutterCon, and I just didn't have all my stuff together. And you were a blessing in disguise, to be honest with you.
awesome. Well, I'm glad that I was able to be part of it.
Yeah. So you're in Utah.
Yep.
I always like to ask people what the weather's like wherever they are.
It is currently snowing. It feels like it is January. We are, I think everyone here in Salt Lake is ready for spring.
Yeah, I heard the West Coast is getting hammered. I have a buddy, another gutter guy from Michigan, and he was tracking through the West Coast on some sort of trail, and he had to cut it short. They just had too much snow up in the mountains.
Yeah, we've gotten at 200% of average snowfall here in Utah. So
Wow.
it snows almost every day.
Wow, crazy. Um, well, that's good in some ways because it's going to really help with the water situation because you guys out west, I don't know about Utah, but been
Yeah,
a
it's been
drought there,
bad.
huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, okay, you're getting snow, and we're talking today, the end of March, so it's not probably that unusual to have snow in March, but you're ready for spring, right?
I am.
I think everyone's ready for spring, so. So, Matt, tell us how long have you been with Divvy?
I've been at Divvy for over 3 years now.
Okay, and
Yep.
what was your background?
So I studied finance, got my
Mhm.
undergrad there, earned finance at a school called Brigham Young University, BYU, which is based
Yeah.
in Utah. And then I joined a small company of about 10 employees, and I was running their finances for them. So
Okay.
it was a startup that was venture backed. And so I was involved in fundraising from investors, running the
Oh,
day-to-day
wow.
finances, payroll, operations, basically anything that wasn't sales focused or engineering product focused was kind of
Gotcha.
my wheelhouse. And the way I got in touch with Divvy, so we used to do reimbursements when people would spend money for the company, they'd put it on their own card
Yeah.
and they would fill out a spreadsheet, they'd print it out, they'd staple all the receipts to it, and they'd put it on my desk. And so at the end of the month, I'd have a stack of those that I'd have to go through, review them, make sure they're authorized expenses, manually enter them into QuickBooks, cut a check for them. And it was probably one of the least favorite parts of my job that I'd have to do every month. And so
Yeah.
I remember I was sitting on a chairlift. We were having um, a, a day with one of our partners, which was our banking partner up at Snowbird. They had got us all ski passes. So I was up there sitting on a lift with a guy who was a CFO of another tech company, and I was talking to him. I just said, "Hey, what do you do for expense management? Like, this is a huge pain." And he said, "Well, we use this piece of software. You should check it out." And so I looked at it. It wasn't Divvy, actually. It was another company, but it was a huge level up, made my life way easier. Yeah, but there were still some things that weren't perfect with it.
Hmm.
And then I had a friend who I found out was working at this Utah company just up the road from me. Started looking into it. It was Divvy, and I realized everything I was hoping that an expense management platform could do, Divvy does. And
Wow.
this is a true story. I liked it so much that I
You bought the
applied to
company?
Divvy. Yeah. And I left my job to go work for the company for Divvy because I really believed in what they were doing.
Yeah, you're probably too young to remember the electric razor commercial that used to say, "I liked it so much, I bought the company."
I don't remember that,
You don't
but
remember that one? There was a
no,
couple.
very similar sentiment though. It was like,
Yeah.
I like this so much. I don't even want to be a customer. I want to be an employee of it.
Nice, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I have to be honest. I don't know. We didn't get a lot of time to chat before GutterCon, and of course, you were really busy at the convention chatting with people that were there. So, why don't you? There's a lot of people that listen to these interviews that weren't at GutterCon. So, why don't you tell them and explain to me what Divvy does, what it's all about. You've already said it's an expense management tool or software. So, how does it all work?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me go ahead and do this if this works, Brent. I'll share my screen
Yeah.
and we'll look through it. And I won't do a full product demo. I'll just talk about it high level. And then if there's
Yeah.
anything specifically that you say, hey, let's dig into this a little more, we can do a little bit more of a product demo of it.
Okay. Sure.
So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. This should be coming through here in just a moment. Are you able to see? It'll say, hi, we're Divvy.
Yep. I can see it.
Okay, awesome. So Divvy is a corporate credit card. So if you're in the gutter industry, you maybe have a credit card through your bank or maybe with Capital One or American Express, whatever that may be. Divvy is a corporate credit card just like they are, but we're also an expense management software. And there's a few areas where in the gutter industry, I've seen a lot of companies benefit from the Divvy solution. So I'm actually going to jump right to that screen, and then
Yep.
we're going to come back and look at a couple other things. So in the gutter industry, uh, some of the major benefits that Divvy offers. One is that we are 100% free. So both the corporate credit card as well as the software that we'll look at here in a moment, there is a no-cost solution. So for both you, for your employees, you'll never pay anything. We still make money. We partner with Visa, which means that companies can spend money anywhere Visa is accepted. And the way we make our money is every time you swipe your Divvy card to buy something, that merchant, whether it's one of your gutter suppliers or you're at the gas pump, they're going to pay a small processing fee to Visa to capture that credit card payment. Now, that's not unique to Divvy. Whether you're using a Capital One, American Express, Chase card, whatever it may be, every credit card does that same thing. They capture a small percentage of the transaction to process that payment. In our case, Visa then is going to split that with us. So that's our revenue model, how we're able to offer Divvy for free. And not only is the software and the credit card free, but we're also going to offer you cashback rewards so that one of the major expenses of a gutter company is going to be you're purchasing supplies from your different suppliers.
Right.
And that can, depending on the size of of your company, that can be a pretty significant amount of spend that you're putting in a given month or a given year on your credit card. And so we want to be able to offer you cashback rewards that you are able to get money back for all that money you're putting on the card. Now, depending on the size of the company, the amount that you're spending, we would be able to get you a more aggressive rate. But what I would say is that we would be at minimum around 1.5% and can go up from there. So we can get pretty aggressive with what
Okay.
you're currently getting.
So I myself don't have cashback cards. What is that comparable to other cashback cards?
It is, yeah. So I would say that most cashback cards are going to be somewhere between 1 and 2%.
Okay.
And so our starting point is going to be kind of right in the middle, and then we can go higher than that.
Okay. Nice.
The second huge benefit is, and this is specifically going to affect if you have an internal bookkeeper or an internal accounting department, or if you outsource that. You may have experienced where people swipe their cards throughout the month. Maybe that's you, your other partners, or your employees. And at the end of the month, your accountant, whether they're internal or outsourced, is going through and trying to understand how all that money was being spent. They may ask you for receipts. They may ask you via email or send you a text and say, "Hey, what was this expense?" And you end up going back and forth for the first couple of weeks of the month just to get all the information to your accountant. The idea behind Divvy is we provide the credit card, but we also provide the software. So what this means is anyone who has a Divvy corporate credit card is also going to have a Divvy account that they can access from their computer or their phone. The average spender is going to access that right from their phone, so that the moment they swipe their Divvy card, that transaction instantly shows up in their account. They're going to get a push notification on their phone, reminding them in that moment to take a picture of the receipt. If you want them to, they could provide a description that they type in. They could code it to the right project or the right customer. so that as they walk out the door, they can throw that receipt away. All that information is already stored on that transaction, and the accountant and you as the owner can see exactly how money was spent the moment it was spent by the organization.
Nice. And does that like sync up with, like QuickBooks or?
It does. And so we integrate with a lot of accounting softwares. What I've found in the gutter industry is the majority of gutter companies are probably on QuickBooks Online or QuickBooks
Yeah,
Desktop.
yeah.
So we integrate with that. So the benefit of this is once I've captured the receipt, I've coded that expense, all of that flows automatically into QuickBooks for me,
Mhm.
including the receipt getting brought over.
Okay. So is there any sort of approval process associated with this? Like, for example, if I had an employee and he went to the gas station, he got gas, but he also got a pack of smokes too. Like, does it just automatically all go through everything and no one sees it? Or is
Yeah,
there a way that, that can be tracked?
that's a great question. So there's approval on the front end. There's also approval on the back end. And so what that would look like on the front end is whenever I give a card to someone, let's say I have a $100,000 credit limit for my gutter company, and I give cards to my staff. What I probably don't want is for everyone to have a blank check of $100,000 that they can go on a
Yeah.
shopping spree. And so
Yeah.
I probably want to put limits ahead of time on how much people can spend depending on their role
Hmm.
and their needs for the organization. So I can give cards throughout to my different employees, my different staff, and then I can decide how much each person can spend. And I can get as granular as saying, I'm going to give a card to someone, maybe it's a part-time employee, an intern, a contractor who spends money occasionally, but not often. And so that they have a card, but they can't spend anything unless they ahead of time go into the app, request the amount they need, and get it pre-approved. And now they can only spend up to what I've said that they can spend. And
So is
so
this like
that's
all happening in real time?
all happening in real time. So I've had it happen before, Bren, where I am walking into a restaurant and I'm taking a client to lunch, and I realize that I don't have enough money on my card to pay for lunch. And so as I'm walking in, I send the request to my manager for $50 to buy lunch for this client. Within seconds, that money, that notification is already gone to my manager. He sees it, approves it, and within seconds, that money is on my card and available to buy lunch by the time the check comes.
Wow.
So it's this is all happening to your point within seconds of these requests happening.
So
But
you could, if you really wanted to keep an eye on people, you could just give everyone zero credit and, just say, look, when you need it, you just make sure you get a hold of me 10 minutes beforehand so I can approve it.
totally, yep. And I've heard of gutter companies. Their guys are in line at Home Depot or whatever the supplier is, and they realize, okay, this is gonna be $100. And so while they're standing in line waiting to get up to the counter, they request that, and by the time they're going to pay for it, that money's already on their card.
Wow, fantastic.
The third huge benefit of Divvy is where I've seen with gutter companies is if you have any type of fleet, being able to use us for fuel cards. And so what Divvy allows you to do is put in place what we call whitelisted industries or transactions in blacklisted industries. So for example, I may say I'm going to give a budget to my guys to be able to buy fuel, and I'm going to whitelist the fuel pump. So for my fuel budget, if I try and use it anywhere but the fuel pump, it won't work, but it will work at the fuel pump.
Oh, I see.
Or I can also blacklist transactions where, and the two most common ones that I've seen is you can say, hey, you can use this card anywhere, but if you try to use it at the casino or if you try and
Strip
use it at
club.
the bar, it's going to decline. Yeah, or the strip club. Yeah, those are the three most common ones.
Yeah.
If you try to use them there, it won't work. If you use it anywhere else, it will. And so what some companies will do is they'll give cards to their guys who need to fill up, and they'll say, we're giving you $500 a month, and it's only going to work at the fuel pump.
Yeah. Well, as a small business owner and not always having my finances in order, I can tell you there's been days that my guys have called and said, we're at the pump. What do we do? It's a solution
Yep.
like this would have been great.
Yeah, absolutely. The final one I'll mention here is, and this is specific if you have a sales staff, whether they're inside sales or outside sales. A lot of companies will run sales spiffs or sales incentives. So an example would be you say, hey, whoever has the most amount of sales this week, we're going to give you, sometimes it'll be a physical product. You'll say, we're going to give you a pair of AirPods, or we're going to give you an Xbox, whatever it may be. But what a lot of companies find is, rather than a physical product, employees just want cash. And so you can do a sales incentive where you give cards to all your salespeople. You put no money on it. You run your sales incentive where you say, hey, whoever sells the most this month, this week, we're going to give you $500. Whoever is a sales rep that wins, you can instantly drop $500 on their card. And now they're not tied to having a physical product. They can now go spend that $500 anywhere that Visa is accepted. And so they have a lot of flexibility on how they actually redeem that sales spiff.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. That's an easy way to just manage it, and probably employees would prefer that.
Yeah, absolutely. When we do that at Divvy, I'm on the sales floor. That's how we do our sales incentives, is the very thing I just said, and it works seamlessly. And as a salesperson, I like the flexibility of spending where I want to.
Yeah. So I guess, with all this real-time stuff happening, obviously there must be some sort of app, or, like, how does that work on, from my, as a business owner, or in the accounting office, like whoever's running this, what do they see?
Yeah, so what it will look like, high level, we'll go through that, and then we'll actually dig in and show you what this would look like from
Sure.
the employee and the admin. So high level, the software side can be accessed from your computer on the web app, or on your phone through the mobile app, and it's available both on Android as well as iOS. On the credit card side, we can issue as many physical cards as you need to your staff, and we also do what are called virtual cards. Now, a virtual card exists just like a physical card does. It has its own 16-digit card number, expiration, 3-digit code. The only difference is it exists on the platform rather than physically in my wallet.
Okay.
And there's a couple of use cases. The probably most common use case, if I'm an individual spender, and I've had this happen before, where I've gone out for a work trip and I realize I forgot my corporate credit card. And so normally what I would have to do is I would then have to put money on my personal card the entire trip. And then when I get back, talk to accounting and say, hey, I'm so sorry, I forgot my physical card. And so here are all my receipts, and they have to do a reimbursement. With Divvy, you don't ever have to do that anymore. So when I went on that trip and I realized I forgot my card, I just created a virtual card in the Divvy app, and I added that to Apple Pay. And then the entire trip, I was able to still spend money against my allocated budget, even though I didn't have my physical card with me.
Wow. That could even be a way that, if your employees would rather that than carrying a card, you could do that too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
The other benefit of doing it that way is, if, let's say, I hire someone new and they start on Monday and they need to spend money on Monday, well, I can get them set up in the Divvy system, and the card's going to take a week or so to show up in the mail. And so, but I can get them set up, allocate the money, and they can start spending money that same day through the virtual card, even though their physical card hasn't shown up.
Mm. So this is a credit card, though. Does it works off a credit? It's not my money in my account, right?
Yeah, so there's two ways to be able to approach the Divvy system. The first would be your traditional credit card. So as a business, you apply for a credit limit with Divvy. We
Hmm.
go through, we get you approved for whatever amount you need, and you spend against that limit. At the end of the period, you pay off that balance, just like any other credit card. The other way to do it is a prepay account, where some companies are opposed to credit cards. They don't like debt,
Yeah.
or maybe they're a brand new company and they don't qualify for
Right.
credit
Yeah.
yet. And so in that case, we can get them set up with a prepay account. Everything that we've talked about and everything we will talk about from the software side is going to work the exact same. The only difference is, instead of spending against credit and paying it off, I'm preloading funds onto the account and spending against that.
I see. And does that happen instantaneously too?
Meaning the fund transfer,
Yeah.
or
Might take a couple.
so yeah. So normally, if I am sending it from my bank over to Divvy, it normally will take a couple days if I'm doing ACH, or if I'm saying I need it same day, then companies can send a wire, and that will normally show up within an hour or so.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess the reason that I even approach that is because, like you said, some people are newer companies, smaller companies, they may not have the credit to get $100,000 credit card.
Totally.
I can totally see how this could still help them. So if you're
Yeah,
spending
yeah.
the
And I
money anyway,
Yeah, and it's like you get all the benefits of Divvy, you get the rewards of Divvy,
yeah,
without the need to be able to have that huge credit limit extended to you.
yeah, yeah, awesome.
Cool. So let's look at what this actually would look like if I were an individual employee, and I'll just visually show you what it looks like as an admin. So if I'm an employee, I'm probably going to spend most of my time on my phone, providing all the information. Now, everything we're going to cover here can also be done from your computer if that person's sitting at their laptop or desktop and just prefer to do it that way. But at first glance, you'll notice that this person has $384.50 allocated to them. So
Hmm.
before they ever swipe their card, they're going to know whether or not that transaction is going to go through or not. Let's say that instead of 384.50, they have $8.51. And so they may look and say, okay, I need more money than what I currently have. They can just from the app click this request button, put the amount they need, they put why they need it, and they can go ahead and click this request button. This would then get sent to whoever's in charge of their budget to review it and either approve it or deny it. If they approve it, like we already mentioned, that's going to show up within seconds for them to be able to spend against.
So
Now,
I'm assuming that the person on the administrative side, they don't have to go do anything with funds or anything. They just have to say approve and then it happens automatically.
yep, exactly right. And
Wow.
so as the admin, you can say, you can have created an overall budget where you can say, okay, I want to make sure that when someone requests funds, I'm not exceeding that overall budget that I've set up.
Yeah,
But you may look at and say, okay, we're going to go over budget, but I'm okay with that as the admin and still approve it.
great.
Now, as I spend money, those transactions are going to pull into my account. And any transaction that says incomplete in Divvy language, what that means is I've spent money, but I haven't coded that expense yet. So as an employee, I know that there's still work for me to do. As I click into it, I'm going to be asked to provide some information, and this is customizable. So every industry and every company is likely going to be a little bit different in terms of what they require. So for example, this company has made the receipt optional. You can just as easily as a company say, I want receipts to be required regardless of the amount, whether it's $2 or $200, I want a receipt to be provided by my staff. Or you could even build in some conditional logic where you could say, anything under a certain dollar amount, I don't need a receipt. Anything over a certain dollar amount, I want that receipt to be provided. If it's a physical receipt, I would just come in here and click add a receipt and take a photo of it. That is now linked to this transaction. If I were to buy something online and I got an email confirmation with the receipt attached,
Yeah,
I could either download that receipt and attach it, or I can just forward that email on to Divvy, and Divvy will auto attach that receipt to the right transaction for me.
right.
And then if there's any other info that you need as a gutter company, that could be, I want an accounting chart of account code, or maybe I want this tied to the right project or the right customer.
Like
I can
maybe it might
those
be
fields.
materials or gas or meals.
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
so on this one, and when I click GL code, I can have a
Oh,
pre-populated
nice.
list. So that way my employees don't have to type it in. They're
Oh,
just selecting from the list that's already given them.
awesome.
And what's nice about this is what one employee sees can be different than what another employee sees. So maybe a guy who is a technician on the road, what he sees is different than what someone in my back office is going to see.
Yeah.
And so they come in this case, they'll say this is a travel expense. This is now updated. Now, there are going to be times where maybe I am running to grab some supplies, and that transaction needs to be tied across multiple companies or multiple customers. And so I buy $500 worth of supplies, but that needs to be tied or associated to 3 different clients. I can go in and I can split that transaction and say, of that $500, I want to split it evenly, or I want to split it in different amounts. And this is how much I want to allocate to each customer.
Great.
Awesome. So that's what it looks like from the employee standpoint. Anything else, Bren, that you think would be helpful to dig into there?
I just I can't believe how easy it is. Like it just streamlines everything for expenses, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. This makes not only the back office life or lives of the back office easier, but it's going to make the spenders' lives way easier, where
Yeah.
they're able to spend and they're able to quickly provide you the info so that they're not getting hounded at the end of the month, like, hey, where did you put that receipt? And they have to dig through their car or try and figure out where they put that receipt.
Yeah. Well, one other question I have, and I know that I deal with this on a daily basis sometimes. I'm up here in Canada, and we have what we call a debit card. I think you guys have that in the U.S. too.
Yep.
Um, but it comes with a daily limit of, I think, $2,500. So, I mean, any of the guys listening here knows if you're going to your shop and you're paying for your materials as you go, um, $2,500 doesn't go too far these days. You can
Yeah.
spend 3, 4, 5,000 bucks stocking the truck. Um, are there limits on the card? Or, I mean, obviously there's limits that you set, but is there a limit? Like, could I set a limit today for $30,000 if we had to make a big purchase?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're not going to run into any limits like you do with a debit card. So the only limits that you're going to experience are your overall credit limit as a company, but you can
Right.
always pay that off and free up additional credit. And then the limits that you put on the individual spenders cards, but those can be changed, and that is a company decision, not something that the institution, the financial institution, is placing on you.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. So I guess that brings up another question that you just mentioned there. So if you didn't have that nice big $100,000 credit limit, and you had, for example, a $5,000 limit, you could use that 5,000 bucks and then just make a payment and just always be keeping ahead of it so that you're good to go all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The,
Okay.
the other benefit, and I had to work with a lot of companies who, especially early on, maybe they are using a debit card. One, because they didn't have the ability to get a credit card, or they just don't really like having debt. Now, the huge potential risk of having a debit card is if that card is ever compromised, now that person now has direct access to your bank account.
Yeah.
And so there's no real liability protection there. You're on the hook if that person starts using your debit card and pulls money out of
Yeah.
your bank account. What's nice about a credit card, including with Divvy, is we're going to provide some liability protection. So if you have credit cards and you start noticing fraudulent transactions, well, you can freeze that card, order a new one, go in, dispute those transactions. To do it, it's pretty easy, and I'll just visually show you what this looks like. So this is what it looks like as an admin. I can either dispute transactions as an admin or as an individual spender. And I would just come in here and I would click whatever one it was. And I would say, oh, this one, let me actually remove these filters here and go to one that maybe just happened. Okay, so let's look at this one that just came through. I'd click dispute transaction. And there's two options here. One is, hey, this was a fraudulent transaction, meaning someone's spending money. I don't know who it was. If I were to click that, then that would automatically cancel that card, order me a new one, and have that shipped in the mail. And then it would provide a provisional credit on that transaction while Divvy and Visa investigate so that you're not on the line for that money that somebody else spent that was fraudulent on
Right.
your behalf. The other option is discrepancy, meaning I recognize this vendor, but they overcharged me or they double charged me. And so if I were to do that, it's not going to cancel your card because somebody else doesn't have your card. It just means I need to get this resolved with the vendor. Divvy would still provide you a provisional credit. We'd work with Visa and with the merchant to be able to get that resolved so that, again, you're not on the
It's
line
not,
for that
and
amount.
it's not tying you up either.
Yep.
Cool.
So that's one of the huge benefits of moving from a debit card to a credit card is just where that liability falls. Instead of falling on the company, it now falls on the credit card company.
Gotcha. Now I have to ask this question too, because I am calling from Canada. Is this something that's only available in the US, or are you available in Canada as well?
Yeah, great question. So in order to use Divvy, you need to have two things. You need to have an EIN number
Yeah.
and you need to have a US bank account.
Yeah.
And so if you're a Canadian company, but you have a US presence,
Yeah.
you certainly can still sign up for a Divvy account. And you could even use Divvy internationally. So you could have it set up by your US subsidiary or
Yeah.
US company, and then still run it with your Canadian employees. Now, there's a couple things that end up happening when you do it that way. The first is we're only able to ship cards to US addresses. So normally what would happen is we'd ship it to whatever your US address is,
Yep.
and then you'd ship those cards up to Canada. So
Gotcha.
that'd be the first limitation. The second limitation that you'd see is anytime you're spending money outside of the US, you would see the transaction, and then underneath you would see a currency conversion fee, which Visa sets at 1%. Now, that would show up initially, but Divvy actually refunds you all those currency conversion fees. So even though Visa charges it, we're going to reimburse you.
Oh, okay. Good. Well, and how easy is it to sign up? I guess you're going to provide us with a couple links so we can put down in the comments below, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'll do is I'll provide two links. One would be, hey, I'm interested in learning more.
Yeah.
And you could fill it out. That would then get routed to me. I'd reach out to you and we could do a deeper dive demo if that's something that's interesting. The second link is I'm ready to sign up. If you click that, it's going to take you to the application. It takes you about 5 to 10 minutes to fill out. Once you click submit, it's going to go through an auto approval, and you'll know within seconds what you've been approved for. We can do an auto approval up to $150,000 limit without any need to get financials or any type of bank documents.
How do you do that?
So we go through and we look at a number of different things. So through the application, you're going to put what your annual revenue is. We're going to be able to see how much available cash you have. We're going to be able to see, do you have any company credit currently through Dun & Bradstreet. We also do a soft pull on the authorized signer's credit.
Oh, okay.
And that's probably one thing that's good to bring up here is whoever the authorized signer is, we're going to do a soft pull, not a hard pull on their credit. And this is important to note. So that way, if you were to go and try and get a home loan or a car loan 6 months from signing up from Divvy, the lender goes and pulls your credit. They're not going to see that Divvy ever did a hard inquiry. They're not even going to see the inquiry because it was a soft pull. The actual credit limit is also not going to show up on your credit report because the credit line is going to be tied to the company and not to you individually.
Okay.
And so to recap, we're going to look at annual revenue of the company, available cash, company credit, years in business, and then the individual signer's FICO score. And that's what the auto approval is going to run through an algorithm, and that's how we're going to determine the auto approved amount. If it comes back less than what you need, or you need more than that 150,000, then we can move that to manual underwriting. And we have a number of ways to get you approved through that process. And there's no limit to the amount we can get you approved there. So we work with companies who need lines as small as $1,000 up to companies who need $1 million or multi-million-dollar credit limits. And so there's really no limit to what we can extend. We would look at the company's needs and what the company financials can support.
Gotcha. That's great. You had a special offer you were running at Gutter-Con. You going to extend that?
Yeah, absolutely. So at Gutter-Con, we had it set up where anyone who took a demo with us got a $100 Amazon gift card. So for anyone who is watching this, if you want to do a demo with me, we'll continue that promotion of a $100 Amazon gift card. Or if you're looking at this and saying, I don't need a demo, let's just sign up, and we skip the demo and go straight to the application, I'll also do the $100 Amazon gift card for that.
Nice. Good. So does this qualify me for a $100 gift card?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay. Well, look, I don't have any more questions. Is there anything else you can think that our listeners might would maybe a question or something you think that they might think of?
Yeah, I think probably the only other thing that I can think of is there's always the question when I sign up for a new software, there's going to be a learning curve. What does implementation look like? What do my help resources look like?
Yeah.
And so Divvy provides implementation consultants to companies to help them get onboarded for the first 90 days that they're on this system.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not going to be on your own trying to figure this out. You're going to have an implementation consultant who would schedule a kickoff call with you. They'd help you get everything set up as an admin. They'd help you if you're using, for example, QuickBooks. They'd help you get that integration set up, your cards ordered, help get your staff trained. So that way, this is a seamless process for you. And so I think
Yeah.
that's the first thing to mention. The second thing to mention is after those 90 days, you're going to continue to have support. And that those are going to be in the form of a few different things. One is you can email Divvy support at any time. Two is you can go in and you can actually do a live chat. And our chat is with all of our support agents are here in the US. And so they're going to be available from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Saturday and Sunday. So I can come in here. You can see we typically reply in under 4 minutes. You click that, you ask your question. You're going to get connected to a live agent and be able to ask those questions. Now, what's nice is these resources for the email, these live chat, and then our help center are not available only to the admins. They're also available to your individual spenders. So if you have a guy who's on the road and he has a question, he doesn't always have to be just picking up the phone and calling you. He can hop in here and he can ask Divvy a question and get that answer without ever having to get you involved as the admin.
Awesome. All from a cell phone.
All from a cell phone. Yep.
Great.
I think that's probably outside of that. I think that's probably everything that is worth covering. And then if anyone does have a question that they want to do a deeper dive on, let's hop on a call one-on-one and we can go through those questions together.
It's just great. I think this is a super software and solution for expenses. It's going to be great for people signing up. Okay, so like
Awesome.
you said, we're going to have a link down below, and they can reach out to you directly there. We'll put your email there too. They can fill out the application and or sign up. And if you sign up, don't forget about that $100 gift card. Thanks so much,
Yep.
Matt. Really appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having me on.
Yeah, and I'm sure we're going to be chatting again before next Gutter-Con for sure.
Hey, looking forward to it.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks. See ya.